You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. The chrisvossshow.com. That's just the best I can do with the old opera voice coming on the show. Thanks for coming on the show and listening with us, folks. 14 years you guys have been with us. We're now going on 1,500 episodes, so we're hitting the new mark there. And we just get better with age. It just everything hurts now. So there you go. But we have some amazing insights and wonderful guests, as always, on the show. The most brilliant thing you can do, though, because sharing is caring. And if you're not sharing, do you really care? Share the show with your family, friends, relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. Maybe you don't care about your family's friends and relatives. I don't know. Maybe it's your own business. But if you want to, whether you like them or not, you can tell them to also go to linkedin.com/Chris Voss, goodreads.com/Chris Voss. The Chris Voss Show ports over there as well. And, Amazon, all those crazy places you can find the Chris Voss Show. Wherever people, we're surrounding you. And we're telling you to please share the show. And we always certainly enjoy that you guys listen. Today we have an amazing gentleman and author, and he's also a doctor on the show. I'm going to be asking him if this looks infected. I don't know what that means, but we'll ask him and see what it is. I always imagine that people that are doctors always have people that walk up to them when they're at parties or when they're just trying to enjoy life and relax, and people walk up to them and go, "You're a doctor? Does this look infected?" I don't know. It's a really bad callback joke. Anyway, he is the author of the newest book that just comes out June 7th, 2023, The Reaper's Dance, 1,000 Days of COVID. When I first read the title, The Reaper's Dance, I thought he was written about Fridays at my house, but I don't know what that means in Vegas. But The Reaper's Dance, 100 Days of COVID is what we'll be talking about today. His newest book has come out, and you can read it and order it wherever fine books are sold. Ravi Iyer, doctor, we should say MD or Dr. Iyer, is the founding physician and president of the Iyer Clinics LMG, a top doctor-rated practice in Fairfax and Loudoun County, Virginia. And he is the director of clinical research for Loudoun Medical Group and a published physician, scientist, entrepreneur, and inventor. He has several patents on drugs, devices, and supplements with applications in the canine and human fields. He's also the founder and CEO of Active Power, Inc., a nutrition and wellness company. Welcome to the show, Dr. Iyer. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for having me on the show, Chris. This is definitely a milestone for you, as always, and a milestone for me, too.
There you go. Well, it's wonderful to have you. Give us your .com so people can find you on the interwebs, please.
Right now, I'm in the process of building my my platform, my author platform, which should be up live by the end of this month. But you can get me at my clinic at Dr. Iyer at IyerClinic.com. So if you just go, it's IYERCLINIC.com, and you can email me at Dr. Iyer at IyerClinic.com.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview of what you, just kind of some of your background on what you do as a doctor.
So I have a very diverse and eclectic background. I trained as a physician in India. I got my physician's license in 1983. So this year I have been a physician for 40 years.
Congratulations.
And subsequent to that, I broke ways with the traditional mold of going into clinical medicine. I went into research for a good 8 to 10 years. I got a doctoral degree in biochemistry and molecular biology in India from All India Institute. And then I got recruited as a postdoctoral fellow. I was at the Mass General Hospital and Harvard Medical School
Oh, congratulations! Wow.
as a fellow. I was there first at the MGH for 3 years, and then for another year, 2 years or so at Children's Hospital in Dana Farber. And my work was predominantly in the realm of immune regulation of the body's ability to fight infections against viruses and difficult to kill bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
So, so when I finished the fellowship, I happened to come to DC to collect an award. I got a Young Investigator Award in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, so at the award ceremony, I happened to meet the chairman of the Department of Medicine at George Washington. And long story short, we struck up a conversation. He made an offer. I thought about it, and then I took up the offer and started my residency as an internal medicine resident at George Washington.
Wow.
And finished my residency, got my license to practice in Virginia, and relocated to Virginia to start a practice in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for about a year, I kind of played around with a little bit, and then I founded the Iyer Clinic in 1997, uh, and haven't looked back ever since. When I started the clinic at a time when everyone was going to group practice, and I branched off and I desired to do solo because I wanted to practice a kind of medicine. I didn't want to do assembly line medicine. I wanted to do a very high value, high intensity, and high um, quality medicine that uh, was not being practiced generally by most people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the first few years was rough. Um, you were trying to do something that was not being reimbursed very well, and you're trying to give quality, more quality than the market could bear.
Mm-hmm.
But so you're on the what I call the bleeding edge of the curve at that time,
Oh.
and I bled quite a bit. So
It's always that
um,
bleeding in your
yeah,
guys' business. What's that about?
yeah. It's, instead of being in the leading edge, you
The
call it the
bleeding
bleeding,
edge. Yeah.
yeah, the bleeding edge.
Leading and bleeding. That's the
Yeah,
title of my new book on leadership.
yeah. So that anyway, so but then it worked out because then people started coming because of the quality we were giving, and we
Mm-hmm.
grew. We were able to buy our first office suite, and then over the next few years, we increased our presence to 3 offices, and since 2013, we have been consistently being awarded the top doctor award in Northern Virginia.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah, I see that here. Northern Virginia top doctors year after year and stuff.
uh, yeah, it's a peer recognition. Roughly about 800 physicians are chosen and given that designation out of about 10,000 in Northern Virginia.
That's pretty good. I usually get an award for being the worst doctor ever, mainly because I'm not a doctor. But no, that's just a joke. I don't really. But no, congratulations. That's quite an award and everything you do. I know something on your website. There's the Dr. Ayers Mayo Rub. Am I reading? Can I see
Yeah,
my?
that's right. That's right.
No. What does that
That
do?
well, that's a liniment that I made, and that's actually part of the Active Power company that I started. But in 2007, my mom was visiting me, and she was complaining of joint pain, and
Mm,
she cannot tolerate. Her knee was hurting and was keeping her up at night,
hmm.
and uh, she can't tolerate ibuprofen. It tears up her stomach.
Oh yeah.
So she couldn't use all those medicines. Since I have a chemistry background and I'm a biochemist, I concocted this liniment out of some herbs and other stuff in the kitchen, and uh, tried it on her knee, and she felt better. And over the next few months, I set up a basement lab, very much like Breaking Bad. I
Ah,
set, I set up a
you
lab in my
doctors, you.
basement. Yeah, no, because I have a chemistry background. I know how
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do
sure.
that kind of
Yeah.
shit. I know how to do the
So
Breaking
how
Bad
good was
stuff
the meth you
also.
made? No, I'm just kidding. Was it blue?
No,
I'm a big fan of
uh,
Breaking Bad.
yeah, I see you like blue a lot.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot going on with the blue.
Yeah,
I had one other go on the show, and he's like, "You got a lot of blue going on there." So it's a roll-on, huh?
it is. It is a roll on, but you can unscrew the roll on and you can pour a little in your hand and rub it in
Yeah.
to your joint. But it's pretty. It works very well. It works
Wow.
better than most of the other stuff that is there in the market,
I'll have
and
to
the
talk to
FD,
my mom about it. She had her knees replaced, and she suffered a
and
lot and still suffers.
it'll after the show, just send me your postal address and I'll send you something
That
complimentary. And
sounds like a good deal. The only
yeah,
problem was she had her knees replaced with hips. Wait, that doesn't work. I don't know. It
and
seemed like a funny joke in my head at the time.
mm,
So let's talk about your latest book. Let's get into this. You wrote the book that's called The Reaper's Dance, 1,000 Days of COVID. Now, the Reaper's Dance is usually what we call Fridays around my house in Vegas when I throw a good party. But why did you call the book The Reaper's Dance? And give us a 30,000 review of what it's about.
well, um, during COVID, my clinic got transformed overnight from a regular internal medicine practice into Northern Virginia's one of Northern Virginia's busiest, and we were the first community COVID testing and treatment site
Oh, wow.
in that area. And then, uh, so over the next 3 years, it was a pretty intense experience. And one of the things that became very evident to me going through the entire pandemic experience was this that our society, not only in the US, but globally, societies were being fractured along fault lines that were being exploited for by unscrupulous people for their own benefit.
Hmm.
And the emotional triggers of populations were being, those buttons were being pressed willy-nilly, and there was no one out there who could actually step up and say, hey, listen, you guys are being used, you need to understand that you don't need to play the game this way.
Hmm.
And so this thought kept coming, and I also saw my 40 years of work uh, being unraveled at a very foundational level um, by the forces in society. So it was not so much the virus was just a symptom, but underlying was this huge fracture of us versus them,
Hmm.
and divisive rhetoric that was being spewed blindly in many ways. So I decided to encapsulate the experience we had at the clinic and write about it in a very powerful way to drive the discussion of where do we go. Okay, the pandemic is has come, it has gone. We are left with the vestiges of the pandemic as a seasonal flu that is going to sicken you for about a week to 10 days, and then you're going to come back.
Hmm.
uh, that's where the virus is, and that's where it's going to head going forward.
Hmm.
uh, but there were so many open questions about why did it have to be this way? Why did
Hmm.
1.13 million people have to die in the US? Why did 8 million people have to die globally? Why did it have to be this way? And how is it that we stumbled so badly, not just in one country, but globally, in the management of this condition?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other things that was very evident as I started doing my research was that there is very, very strong emerging evidence that this pandemic was man-made. It
Mm.
it it got it, and now authorities in the U.S., CDC, the National Bureau of Biological Safety, they all are coming out with clear indications that this was a lab accident in a virology lab in the epicenter of the virus in China
Mm-hmm.
that resulted in the release of this virus
Mm-hmm.
uh, that initially infected three of those lab workers. Uh, and those are reports. Not I'm not saying it. It's the Wall Street Journal saying it,
That's true.
and then it's not that they're saying it back in 2019. They said it in 2019, 20. They said it in 2020, and they said it on June 20th of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
You know, uh, barely a month ago, they
Mm-hmm.
came out with the name and the photograph of the individual who was hospitalized.
Wow.
Uh, yeah. Um, so uh, so the so as I wrote all of this, it became evident to me that my book was describing not just the experience of us at the clinic, it was describing the experience of our community. It
Mm-hmm.
was describing the experience of the experts in academia, experience of experts in public policy, politicians, um, ordinary people on both sides of the Atlantic, uh, and it took a life of its own. I actually the book practically wrote itself. I started writing it on December 10th. It
Mm-hmm.
was complete. It was complete essentially on February 11th
Oh wow.
of December 10th, 2022. I finished it on February 11th, 23, and then between 11th and May, February to May, I was just tinkering with it and I was polishing it here and there. But uh, and we sent it for an editorial review and things like that before published it out on Amazon.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you tackle in the book? Do you just try and tell the historical history of it, or where we went wrong? Um, do you try and clarify some facts? What's the take on the book that you try and present
Why
as
don't
what
I'll
happened?
I'll read a passage. I'll
Sure.
read I'll read a powerful passage on this.
Okay.
Um, the ICU day 15.
Hmm.
The nurse steps in to check on the woman in the bed. She's barely visible, lying there somewhere beneath the tangled maze of ventilator and intravenous tubing. Above her, a fluorescent green blip dances its way across the screen of a monitor. Yellow numbers glow out readings of pulse, blood pressure, and oxygen saturation level. The room is filled with the low hiss of the ventilator meter. But the woman in ICU bed number 5 doesn't notice it. She's sedated, deep under a propofol induced sleep,
Mm-hmm.
blissfully unconscious of the disease that has ravaged her body. Now only the chemical cocktail of the drugs dripping into her veins and the mechanical beat of the ventilator are forcing her life force into a being, a reluctant tenant in a body fast approaching the point of becoming a dwelling incompatible with life. I have been this woman's doctor for many years. She did everything right. She isolated, washed hands, covered her face, and stayed away from crowds. Her husband, daughter, and son all followed my guidance to a T. Pity that the rest of her friends did not. Too bad the neighbors on her street did not. Somewhere out there, someone had felt they had a greater right to their breath of maskless fresh air. So, this 48-year-old beautiful wife and mother will have to give up her right to all of her breaths. A 50-year-old man will have to watch the love of his life struggle to give up her ghost through a cell phone video, and a teenage son and daughter will spend the rest of their lives without the breath of a mother fanning their cheeks.
Wow.
Now, my patients in my clinic had access to much greater comprehensive guidance and knowledge about viral mechanisms and methods of prevention and safety than the White House coronavirus briefings in 2020.
Wow.
What was tragic was that no one had the courage to call this out.
Yeah.
The emperor was prancing down Pennsylvania Avenue in naked narcissistic splendor, attended by fawning, self serving courtiers, and no one could turn their stunned gaze from the horrific spectacle long enough to declare the obvious before them all. Everyone kept trying to manage the buffoon in the house in the hope that somehow the damage could be mitigated and contained. From papers that would be whisked away to briefings that would be tailored long before the pandemic, US policy was being crafted by a shadow government of public servant managers who had decided that they had to quietly save America from the Nero at its helm. Before, all over the world, morgues were overflowing,
Mhm.
graveyards were running out of space, the dead were being buried, lying on their sides so graves could be cut narrower and more bodies stacked per square yard of terrain. Globally, 100 Romes were burning. The fires of hell were blazing, and the devil and his minions were dancing in an inferno fueled by a growing field of corpses scythed down by a reaper wearing a crown of spikes.
Wow. I love your writing. It's beautiful. It's extraordinary. I mean, it's very poetic. I really love how you describe the situation and the verbiage and adjectives that you use. It's really beautiful. I like the way you put it.
Yeah, so it hit us in the clinic at a very visceral level,
Hmm.
and it became obvious to me that there were questions that we had as a society to answer with regard to how we deal with the world around us, because deforestation and um, global climate change is going to bring more and more of us in contact with wildlife.
Hmm.
And there are more viruses like this out there that will make the jump from animals to humans, um, with or without human help.
Hmm.
And if this is how we are going to deal with the pandemic, uh, we really need to get our act together.
That is very true. You know, it really became kind of Lord of the Flies situation. And as
Yeah,
you mentioned, the thing without good leadership at the executive level of our country, it really became Lord of the Flies. I mean, I was thinking
yeah,
just the other day about how all the states had to fight for PP, what was it, PPE,
yeah,
personal
yeah,
protection.
yes,
And, I was listening to the Federalist Papers. And the Federalist Papers I've been listening to that were written by Hamilton and I think some of the other founders that wrote a constitution, and they were talking about how one of the great ways of making us a country out of all the 13 states that were there at the time was because they could group by for medicines and they could group by for stuff. And
yes.
I remember thinking, yeah, I remember during COVID, all the states were fighting each other and driving up the price of PPE, um, and they shouldn't have been. There should have been a federal agency buying all that stuff and distributing it. But such was
we
the.
we we had the same problem in the clinic, and so what we did was the PPE that was so priced out of the market was
Mhm.
disposable. So we decided to switch gears there was no shortage of cheap windbreakers and ski pants.
Oh wow.
So these are polyester material that are impervious and can serve as PPE. So I bought enough for all my staff,
Wow.
and we used to wear that and treat our patients, and then at the end of the day, take it off and put it into the laundromat's hot water cycle, and there it is. It's clean and it's ready for the next
And
day.
ski pants would worked as masks?
Yeah, not as whole body.
As whole
Uh,
body stuff. Wow.
as whole body overalls,
That's
hazmat
pretty
overalls.
awesome. Pretty
Yep.
innovative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
It was kind of like Lord of the Flies, and it certainly, you know, the book Lord of the Flies, it certainly didn't bring out the best of us in some cases. I think in some cases it did, some cases it didn't. But I think your point to you know, most people don't didn't perform too well. You know, maybe we should look at that in the future and see if we can maybe do better.
so I talk about that. I talk
Hmm.
about that mentality of us versus them,
Hmm.
and I talk about it. It comes out of a particular mentality of looking at life as if there's a perpetual shortage of resources.
Hmm.
So 99% of people live life as if they have to hustle for the things that they want in their life. Otherwise, it'll get away from them. Somebody else will get it and they will lose out in the race.
Yeah.
And this, they approach life as if the things that they want are physical objects bounded by time and space, and therefore if they don't grab it, somebody else is going to grab it, or it's going to decay, or it is going to disappear, or it'll get consumed, or in some way it'll go away.
Hmm.
So I call this the not enough life, like not enough time, not enough money, not enough love, not enough friends, not enough recognition, not enough, not enough, not enough. Everything is not enough. And the not enough life, I describe it as a poverty that can never be filled. Uh,
Hmm.
and if you look at the lives of successful people, of people of enormous power and accomplishment, they don't live their life as if it's a shortage of resources. They
Yeah.
live their life, they look at the things that they accumulate in their life not as objects, but they look at the relationships that they have to those things.
Hmm.
And they are focused on the relationship, not on the end goal object acquisition.
There you go.
Uh, this And when you do that, what happens is you shift from being a consumer and a hoarder to becoming a steward and a leader. The
Hmm.
difference between a steward and a leader is they don't approach life from a shortage mentality. They approach life from an abundance mentality. They approach
Hmm.
it not from a poverty mindset, they approach it from an abundance mindset. And the abundance is in their attitude, not in the actual objects. So when you shift yourself to that abundance mentality, then what happens is automatically you can switch to out of the not enough life to a life that is focused on progress. And you'll also simultaneously shift from an us versus them conversation to a we conversation.
Hmm.
Right now, everything is us or them, us or them.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is we need to move from an us and them. Us and them have to start talking about it as we.
Yep.
And the we has to include even the animals, the plants, and the nature around us, because otherwise nature is going to kill us.
That's true. You know, we're starting to see the effects of, you know, all of the things that are going on in the world, like global warming. You know, right now we're doing this broadcast.
125 degrees yesterday in
Yeah.
Qatar. That is measured to be at the outer limit of what is humanly survivable.
Jesus. So you can't even go out and try and survive going outdoors or shopping, huh?
125.
125. That just sounds like just not fun, basically. And we've got climate change with you can debate all you want, but it's clearly getting hotter, and
Yeah.
it's clearly and sea levels are rising. I
You,
mean,
you
right
can be
now.
like the frog. You can be like the frog in the beaker, saying, "Oh yeah, it's getting hot. It's getting hot, but I ain't going to jump out yet."
Mhm. And I mean, you can say what you want about rising sea levels and stuff, but insurers are pulling out of Florida right now. My friends in Florida, there's been a ton of insurers leaving. It's getting hard to insure your house and insure your car there because they're concerned about more storms, more issues, more different things like that.
The
Um,
water, the water in Florida is close to 90 degrees.
oh wow, so that's going to translate into more storms, right?
Yes,
Yeah, there you go.
90-degree water. Would you get into water that's 90 degrees? Oh,
Yeah, I don't think I'd do. How hot is the? I know I'm in a hot room in the sauna, but I don't stay in there for very long. I'm 20 minutes, 15 minutes at the sauna. I think it's 220 in the sauna. Um, but I don't know how hot the jacuzzi is when I sit in it at night. But
it's
yeah, it's pretty
it's a
interesting.
yeah.
So you wrote the book. What do you hope people get from reading your book? What do you hope we learn?
The number one thing I would like people to learn is that they really need to collaborate. People need to collaborate.
Mm,
People need to read up and educate themselves about their surroundings. They People need to reach out across the aisle. They need to start looking at um, human beings as human beings first, rather than tribes.
mm-hmm,
Right now you have an evangelical tribe, you have a Baptist tribe, you have a Muslim tribe, you have a Republican tribe, a Democrat tribe, you have a MAGA tribe, you have a never Trump tribe, you have an only Trump tribe. It's a whole bunch of tribes.
mm-hmm.
And what we need is, somewhere along the way, is, hey man, hey lady, are you there somewhere?
Yeah, we all need to learn to get along, as someone famously said one time. Why can't we all just get along? But I love the beautiful way that you wrote the prose in the book and talked about it, and brought the humanity into it because I think a lot
We
of
humans first. We are first and foremost humans before we even know our names.
hmm
We are first and foremost humans before we even choose what religion we will adopt and live with.
yeah
We- and that foundational reality has to be gotten back in touch with.
hmm
Pe- otherwise we are doomed. That is the death now. When humans stop looking at ourselves as humans first,
hmm
and we see ourselves first and foremost as an ideology, that is a problem, a serious problem.
There you go. I like how you nailed that. We see each other as an ideology as opposed to humans. I know there were people who celebrated people dying during the COVID. It sounds like a lot of the book and the stories you have in it are taken from your experience as a doctor of medicine and in working in the patients thing. I don't think a lot of people have told that story because
every
a
every
lot.
one of the stories. So I have the nonfiction part of it, and then I have the human interest stories. Every human interest story in the book comes out of a genuine patient encounter,
Mhm.
uh, a real patient. The names have been changed, certain scenarios
For
have been
HIPAA.
changed, so that it's not easy to identify, though the individual people can recognize themselves when they read
Sure.
the book.
Sure. We need stories like this to understand the horror of what went on in these in ERs and in hospital beds. It kind of became it became kind of a thing like with school shootings in this country where people just tune it out and they don't really see the actual horror and the death and the bodies and everything else. And so it's good that people that witnessed the horror of what went on in these things are sharing this. And
Chris,
yes.
there was there was just a few weeks ago, 5 men got crushed to death in the depths of the Atlantic Ocean
Mm-hmm.
trying to get to the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
The the whole world could relate to the horror of that.
Mm-hmm.
On the same day as the 5 people got crushed, the total death toll of all the people who died of COVID in the US reached 1.13 million.
Holy crap.
What I'm saying is, human beings cannot comprehend 1.13 million.
Mm-hmm.
They can comprehend 5.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 appears real because they can put those 5 people into their dining table. They can put them in into their living room and have coffee with those 5 people, and they can relate to 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes very difficult to bring out horror when you're talking 1.13 million.
Yeah.
During COVID, there was a doctor friend of mine was and I were talking about it. The US had 200,000 more number of deaths because we didn't get our public health policy act together than Canada.
Wow.
So it is we are not even we are comparing two advanced societies with good healthcare systems. Canada had 200,000 less deaths, and just south of the border, the US had 200,000 more deaths.
Wow.
So my doctor colleague friend said, when you kill one person, you hang for murder. When you kill 200,000, it just becomes misguided policy.
Yeah. It was interesting to see how, politicians, and even now there's deniers of it in the political side, um, could run around and misrepresent stuff and never be held accountable because, I don't know, I guess it's the First Amendment or free speech that prevents them from being held accountable. Yet people died. I mean, you had a president, narcissistic president, told people to inject bleach at one point, and people did.
That's
Uh,
right.
there was a couple, I believe, in Florida that after they heard him say inject bleach, they went and did it. And what a
Yeah.
horror show! And why isn't someone held liable for that? I mean, it's just
The,
extraordinary
well,
to think about.
the way our society is crafted, life is not fair, and justice, no
Wait,
matter how much you want it.
serious? I'm
Yeah,
55 and I'm just getting this message. Damn it!
no, life
Uh,
is not fair, and justice does not always prevail. But but I do believe there is an accounting that happens. I believe that the American people are not stupid, and
some of
uh,
them.
and
Let's not
and
push them.
and,
I don't
and,
know.
and an accounting people and an accounting was done in 2020, uh,
Hmm.
and is still being accounted for. So it doesn't matter. Over time, everything will shake out, and history will have its final say. Uh, but at the same time, the average people, the message that I want to get out in this book is that people need to educate themselves. They need
Hmm.
an educated voting population is the surest indicator for a healthy society. And our population is not educated. That is the one thing.
That's true. There's been a lot of decline in education over 20 or 30 years. My mother was a teacher, and she used to complain about how, budgets were always being drawn back and school sizes were being doubled and tripled on her. And it was harder to, educate people and blah, blah, blah. yeah, it seems like the dumber we get. There is the old George Carlin adage that what is the old adage? Imagine how dumb the average person is, and realize that 50% of the people are dumber than them. So there's that. Uh,
I love George Carlin.
he was brilliant. He
His
was
satire is unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah, it was probably the cocaine. But yeah, he had a little bit of issue with cocaine for a few years, which probably led to his early untimely death. But no, it's there's always the dumb people. But I always assumed that we would, in a dark time, we kind of kumbaya as a species a little bit there, at least a little bit. I don't know, there's some sort of fantasy, I suppose, I had that we were enlightened and that we would behave better in certain times. And really, it just became Lord of the Flies in almost a modern sense of people going, completely crazy. I mean, seeing people flip the hell out over stuff, just really extraordinary. So, anything further you want to tease on the book before we go?
Read the book. Um, I got a copy here. It's available on Amazon. It's easy. An audiobook version is coming out probably by the end of this week. It should be out on Amazon too. So it's there on Kindle, paperback. Um, if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free for you.
Mm.
And if you are economically disadvantaged and you want to shoot me an email, and I'll make sure you get a free copy.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. It helps some people out and get everybody going there. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, Doc. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
There you go. And give us a .com so we can find you on the interwebs, please.
Um, DRIYER at IYERCLINIC.com. So
There you
it's
go.
Dr. Iyer at IyerClinic.com, and the website is IyerClinic.com.
There you go. And we'll have a link for that on the Chris Voss Show as well. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Thanks, my audience, for tuning in. We really appreciate you guys, because without you, I'd just be sitting here talking to a mic, and no one wants to hear that. I don't know what that means. Anyway, guys, order up where fine books are sold. It just came available June 7th, 2023. The Reaper's Dance. 1,000 Days of COVID. We should have that Blue Oyster Cult song playing as we roll out of the show. Anyway, folks, refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Support us on the social media networks there. We really appreciate it. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and pick up The Reaper's Dance. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. And we'll see